It was an ordinary night on Earth when everything changed. The sky looked calm, the stars glittered quietly, and people all over the world went on with their usual lives. No one knew that far beyond those stars, something ancient and powerful was watching. It began with a sound that wasn't really a sound, a vibration that moved through the fabric of space itself. Satellites orbiting Earth picked it up first, a strange pulse of energy unlike anything human scientists had ever recorded. The transmission did not come from a nearby planet or any known star system. It came from a region so far away that even the most powerful telescopes had only seen empty darkness there. At first, scientists thought it was an error, maybe a cosmic echo or interference caused by solar radiation. But then the pulse repeated, and this time it came with patterns clear and deliberate like a message. Within hours, observatories around the world confirmed it. The message contained structured symbols, not random noise. Humanity had received a signal from intelligent life. But this wasn't just any alien message, and it was an invitation. The decoded part read, "Council summons origin world. Explanation required." No one understood what it meant, but the world was suddenly holding its breath. Governments rushed to respond. Emergency meetings were held between NASA, ESA, and every major space agency. The United Nations went into session at midnight. Leaders and scientists from every corner of the world gathered in panic and awe. For centuries, humans had wondered if they were alone. Now they knew they weren't. And the message didn't sound friendly or curious. It sounded like a demand. Explanation required. For what? Nobody knew. Meanwhile, far from Earth, in orbit around the moon, a small research station called Luna Base 4 was already on alert. The crew there received the transmission firsthand, and their instruments recorded the exact energy signature that came with it. The base commander, Captain Darius Hume, stared at the data with disbelief. The signal was strong enough to bend local space-time for a few milliseconds, something that shouldn't be possible. It was as if the message itself carried power. When Earth scientists finally managed to translate more of the alien symbols, the meaning became clearer and even more shocking. The message came from something called the Galactic Council, an interstellar organization representing hundreds of advanced civilizations. They governed trade, peace, and knowledge sharing across star systems. But in all their existence, they had never contacted Earth directly. Until now. And the reason they were contacting humanity made no sense at all. The message accused humans of breaking the known laws of physics. In laboratories on Earth, people whispered in disbelief. "How could we break laws we barely understand?" one scientist asked. But deep in the files of the Lunar Research Agency, there was a project that fit the description, the Corona Drive. It was a secret experiment designed by Dr. Lena Armitage, a physicist whose theories had already been dismissed as impossible by most of her peers. She and her small team had built a prototype engine that, according to the data, produced infinite thrust with almost zero energy loss. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. They were still testing it when the alien transmission arrived. When the Council's message mentioned anomalous energy emissions from the origin world, Dr. Armitage immediately knew it was about her invention. The Corona Drive had emitted energy waves powerful enough to reach other star systems. But how could something built in a small lunar lab attract the attention of civilizations across the galaxy? That question haunted everyone involved. As news spread, the world became divided between fear and pride. Some people believed it was the beginning of war, that humanity had angered gods of the cosmos. Others saw it as proof that humans had finally achieved something so great that even alien civilizations couldn't ignore it. The internet exploded with theories, news, and panic. People pointed telescopes at the sky, waiting for alien ships. Some prayed, some celebrated, and some locked themselves in bunkers. Days later, another transmission arrived. This one was not a request, but a command. The origin world's representative will appear before the Galactic Council to explain the Corona event. Along with the message came coordinates and a strange pattern of symbols that scientists quickly realized was a spacefold gateway, a kind of wormhole generator. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation to travel across the galaxy instantly. The decision was made at the highest level. Dr. Lena Armitage was chosen to represent Earth. She would be humanity's first ambassador to an interstellar government. Her hands shook as she read the Council's message over and over. She was not a politician or a soldier. She was a scientist who had only wanted to understand the universe, and now that universe was calling her to explain herself. Before she left, Lena addressed a small group of world leaders and scientists. "If what we created truly broke the laws of physics," she said softly, "then maybe those laws were never complete. Maybe the universe is bigger than anyone thought." Her calmness gave others courage, but deep down she was terrified. What if the aliens saw her work as a danger? What if they decided humanity was too reckless to exist? At the scheduled time, the lunar gateway activated. The energy readings were off the charts. Light bent around it, forming a glowing ring of silver and blue. Lena stepped forward wearing a sleek environment suit with Earth's flag on the arm. Behind her, the crew watched in silence as the wormhole hummed with strange life. A single step and she vanished into the light. For a few moments there was only emptiness. Then the signal from her suit showed she had arrived safely, not in another part of the moon, not even in the solar system, but in an artificial structure orbiting a distant star. The structure was massive, large enough to hold planets within its interior rings. This was the Council Assembly, the heart of the Galactic Federation. Lena floated inside a transparent chamber, surrounded by shapes and lights that defied description. Beings of all forms and sizes filled the massive hall, creatures made of crystal, vapor, metal, and light. They spoke in harmonized tones that blended into something like music. As her translator device began decoding their language, one phrase echoed clearly in her ears. "Representative of the origin world, you stand before the Galactic Council." Explain the impossible, Lena's heart pounded. For the first time, humanity had proof that they were not the most intelligent species in the universe, but now she also realized something else. These beings, powerful and ancient as they were, feared what humans had done. They had called her here not to learn, but because they were afraid. The Chrono Drive had changed more than physics. It had changed the balance of power. On Earth, the whole planet watched through a live data feed, though no one could see her directly. They could only track her biosignals and hear faint translations of the Council's words. People gathered around screens in cities and villages waiting for news from the stars. It felt as if the entire human race was holding its breath together. Back in the council chamber, Lena tried to speak, but her voice trembled. "We didn't mean to break anything," she began. "We were only trying to understand how to travel faster than light." A low murmur spread across the hall, a ripple of energy as the alien delegates communicated in ways beyond sound. One of them, a shimmering entity of blue light, responded through the translator. "Your world has achieved what none have done in millennia. You have undone the constants that bind matter. Such an act demands understanding." Lena looked around, realizing that every being in the chamber was watching her, judging her, studying her, waiting for an explanation she wasn't sure she had. For a moment she felt smaller than ever before, like a child standing before gods. But then another thought crossed her mind. Maybe humanity wasn't small anymore. Maybe this was the moment they proved that curiosity and courage could take them further than any species had ever gone. As the council's lights dimmed and the questioning began, Lena took a deep breath. She didn't know how this would end or what the council might decide. But she knew one thing for certain. The universe would never look at Earth the same way again. And somewhere, across countless stars, the faint hum of the Chrono Drive continued to pulse, echoing like a heartbeat through space, a reminder that humanity had finally done the unthinkable. Dr. Lena Armitage had always been the kind of scientist who refused to accept that something was impossible. Since her childhood on Earth, she would look at the stars and wonder what kept them burning, what invisible forces held the universe together. While other children dreamed of being astronauts or explorers, Lena dreamed of rewriting the rules that made the universe work. When she grew older, that dream turned into a mission. She became one of the youngest physicists ever to work on Luna Base 4, a research station built on the moon for deep space experiments. There, away from the limits of Earth's gravity and politics, she started working on something that no one believed could ever exist, a machine that could bend time and space. The project began with a simple question: what if energy could be created from the folds of space-time itself? According to every law of physics, this was impossible. Energy could not come from nowhere. Every reaction had to use fuel or mass. But Lena had spent years studying quantum fields, and she believed there were gaps, tiny holes in the equations. that everyone else had ignored. Those gaps, she thought, might hide untapped energy locked between moments in time. She called her idea quantum field compression. Her colleagues laughed at first, calling it science fiction. Even her superiors warned her not to waste time on something so unrealistic. But Lena didn't stop. She built a small lab inside the lunar station, working day and night with her small team. Her team consisted of 3 people who believed in her vision. There was Rafik Danner, a quiet engineer who could build anything from scrap, Mira Joe, a mathematician who saw numbers like music, and Dr. James Cole, a friend who had known Lena since university. Together they built the first prototype, a small metallic ring only 2 meters wide. It looked harmless, just a smooth silver circle filled with strange glowing lines. They called it the chronodrive. To most it looked like an art sculpture, but Lena knew that if her math was correct, this ring could do the impossible. The first test almost failed. The power readings went off the charts, alarms blared, and the control room lights flickered. Rafik shouted that the power source couldn't handle the stress. The energy being pulled into the device was far greater than what they had fed into it. "Shut it down!" Mira yelled, but Lena hesitated. Her eyes were fixed on the readings. The numbers didn't make sense. The output was more than 10 times the input. That couldn't happen, unless the device was drawing energy from somewhere else. Finally, to prevent an explosion, Lena slammed the emergency switch. The hum stopped. The lights came back on, and in the middle of the lab, the ring glowed faintly, still warm, still alive. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lena whispered, "It worked." The others didn't believe her at first. They ran simulations again and again. Every time the results were the same. The chronodrive produced more energy than it consumed. That broke every known law of physics. It was like creating fire that burned forever without fuel. It was impossible, and yet it was right there in front of them. They tried to understand how it worked. Mira spent sleepless nights running calculations. She found something strange. The energy signature from the machine didn't match any known pattern in their database. It was as if the energy came from outside the universe's normal flow of time. Lena realized they might have tapped into something that existed between moments, a kind of hidden layer of reality that connected all possible versions of time. "It's like borrowing power from the future," she said one night, her voice filled with awe. "Or maybe from somewhere that doesn't exist yet." When they sent their data back to Earth for review, the scientific community exploded with disbelief. Many accused them of lying. "Perpetual motion is impossible," one professor from MIT said in an interview. "They're either mistaken or fabricating their results." But then came the undeniable proof, the probe test. To test the Chronodrive on a larger scale, they built a small unmanned space probe and connected the drive to it. The plan was to activate it for just a second to see how it reacted. Lena stood in the control room with her team, eyes locked on the monitor. 3, 2, 1. Rafik counted down. The drive activated, and the probe vanished. The instruments went crazy, detecting space distortion and gravitational waves. Everyone froze. "What happened?" Mira asked, her voice trembling. "It's gone," Rafik said softly. "Completely gone." At first they thought it had exploded or disintegrated, but then, 15 minutes later, the base received a faint signal, a distress beacon from the probe. The coordinates it sent made everyone gasp. The probe had traveled 10 light-years away to a distant star system, instantly. There was no jump, no trail, no travel time. It had just disappeared from one point and reappeared in another part of the galaxy. The discovery spread like wildfire. Within days, major space agencies demanded the data. Military organizations wanted to know if the technology could be used for weapons or instant transport. News outlets called it the miracle engine. People on Earth celebrated Lena and her team as heroes, though many still doubted the truth. The idea that humans had built a device that could bend space without fuel seemed too good to be real. But far beyond Earth, someone else was listening. The chronodrive's activation had sent out a wave, not just light or energy, but something deeper, a ripple through the structure of the universe itself. It was as if a stone had been thrown into a cosmic ocean, and the ripples had reached other shores. Civilizations light years away detected the anomaly. To them, the signal was alarming. No known technology, not even from the oldest star empires, could do what the humans had just done. It broke the constants that every civilization agreed were unchangeable. Weeks later, when the Galactic Council's message reached Earth, Lena understood immediately why. "They think we broke their universe," she said quietly. She couldn't blame them. If another species had done what she did, she'd be frightened too. The power to fold space and time without energy cost was too great. It could move worlds, destroy stars, or alter reality itself. But even with all this fear, Lena's curiosity burned stronger than ever. She wanted to know why it worked. If their invention truly ignored the laws of physics, then those laws were incomplete. Maybe the universe had hidden layers that no one had ever seen. She began writing a paper to explain her theory, that the chronodrive drew power from quantum shadows, alternate timelines that branched off from every possible choice or event. It didn't create energy, it borrowed it from another version of reality. Her theory was bold and dangerous. If she was right, every use of the chronodrive might be taking energy from another timeline, possibly damaging or collapsing it. "What if every time we turn it on, another world fades out of existence?" Mira asked one night, horrified. Lena didn't have an answer. "Maybe," she admitted. "But maybe that's the price of progress." The team became divided. Rafiq wanted to shut it down, fearing they were meddling with something beyond human control. James, ever the optimist, believed they had made history and should continue. Lena stood between fear and wonder, unable to decide. The chronodrive represented everything she had ever dreamed of, proof that the universe still had mysteries waiting to be uncovered. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line they didn't understand. Meanwhile, the strange energy signatures from their experiments continued to spread across space. They didn't know it yet, but those signals were acting like beacons, alerting more civilizations beyond the Council. Some came in curiosity, others in fear. Humanity had, without meaning to, announced itself to the entire galaxy, not as explorers, but as rule breakers. Then one morning, as Lena was reviewing data, the base's communication system lit up with dozens of unread messages. Earth's authorities were sending urgent requests. Reports were coming in that satellites across the solar system were picking up new waves of energy, echoes of the chronodrive. It seemed that their single experiment had started something that could not be contained. Lena felt both pride and dread. She had wanted to open a door to the stars, and she had succeeded. But now it seemed that door could never be closed. Humanity had taken its first step into a much larger universe, and that universe had noticed. As she stared out of the lunar window, watching the dark, endless space beyond, she whispered to herself, "We didn't break the laws of physics. We just discovered how small they really are." But she knew that this discovery came with a price. Something vast and ancient had heard them, something that did not like being challenged, and somewhere, light years away, the Galactic Council prepared for an emergency meeting. They had seen the human data. They had tested it, analyzed it, and found no errors. The chronodrive really worked. It was impossible. And yet, it existed. For the first time in thousands of years, the greatest minds in the galaxy were speechless. Humanity, the youngest species among the stars, had done the unthinkable. When Dr. Lena Armitage opened her eyes, she was standing in a place no human had ever seen before. It wasn't a planet or a space station. It was something beyond imagination. The air shimmered with colors that didn't exist on Earth, and gravity seemed soft, as if the floor itself was gently breathing. She looked around, heart pounding. She had traveled across the galaxy through a gateway built by beings she couldn't even understand. And now, she was about to face the most advanced civilizations in the universe. Her translator chip flickered to life, whispering words in her ear as alien voices filled the massive chamber around her. The Galactic Council wasn't just a group of aliens. It was a gathering of hundreds of species, each one stranger and more majestic than the last. Some looked like pure light. Others had bodies made of gas, stone, or water. They sat in floating rings that hovered around a glowing core at the center of the hall. Lena's steps echoed as she was guided to a platform of energy that lifted her into the air, placing her before the council. She could feel thousands of eyes, if they could be called eyes, studying her. She was tiny compared to them, a single fragile human standing before civilizations that had existed for millions of years, and yet the entire chamber was silent. They weren't angry. They were curious, but behind that curiosity she could sense fear. A tall being made of translucent crystal floated forward. Its voice sounded like music played backward, and the translator whispered the words into Lena's ear. Representative of the origin world, you are summoned to explain the anomaly known as the Chrono Drive. Your technology violates the constants that define the cosmos. Lena swallowed hard. Her throat was dry. We didn't mean to break anything, she said slowly. We only wanted to understand how to travel faster than light. Her voice echoed weakly in the grand chamber. A low murmur spread through the audience. Some of the beings whispered among themselves in tones that made the air vibrate. Another delegate, this one with a body of swirling mist and glowing eyes, drifted closer. Your device consumes no energy and yet produces infinite motion, it said. Such a machine cannot exist, and yet your data proves it does, explain. Lena hesitated. She wanted to tell them everything. But how could she explain human curiosity? The reckless drive to create, even when the world said it was impossible. Our scientists found a way to compress quantum fields, she began. We thought it was just a new way to store energy, but the Chrono Drive did something we didn't expect. It folded space, it moved things instantly. The Council's energy core pulsed with light as data from the Chrono Drive appeared in the air as floating symbols. The alien scientists had already examined her invention. They had taken her equations and tested them using their own systems. But the results made no sense to them. The energy output was infinite. Time seemed to pause inside the device. Space curved in ways their own physics could not explain. The crystal being raised one glowing arm. We have studied your creation. Its equations are correct, but they should not function in any known universe. It appears your species has found a path outside reality itself. Lena felt dizzy. Outside reality? She repeated. Yes, another voice said, a deep mechanical tone coming from a metal-bodied being with a head shaped like a triangle. Your device draws power from what we call the between realms, regions that should not be accessible to physical matter. To use such energy is forbidden, for it risks unraveling the order of existence. Lena's heart raced. We didn't know, she said softly. We were just experimenting. We never meant to cause harm. The council chamber buzzed with light and sound as the delegates discussed among themselves. Some spoke in concern, others in anger. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once finally filled the hall. It belonged to the High Speaker, the oldest and most respected being in the council. Its form was impossible to describe, like a shifting storm of stars in human shape. The last time a civilization touched the between realms, the speaker said slowly, their universe collapsed into silence. We sealed the pathways forbidding all access, yet your kind has opened them again without knowledge or permission. Lena stepped forward, her fear giving way to courage. If that's true, then we should work together, she said. We didn't open it on purpose. Maybe we can learn to control it. The entire chamber fell silent again. The High Speaker seemed to study her for a long time. Finally, it asked, you claim ignorance, yet your equations show comprehension of 11-dimensional constants. Such knowledge cannot be accidental. Lena shook her head. We didn't understand what we found. We just followed the math where it led us. Humans, we are explorers. Sometimes we find things before we're ready for them. At that, a new voice spoke. A smaller being, glowing green like a flame. That is what makes them dangerous, it hissed. They stumble through creation with no fear, no boundaries. Today they bend time. Tomorrow they may tear the universe apart. Murmurs of agreement echoed. Lena could feel the tension rising. She was no longer just a scientist. She was the face of an entire species on trial. But then something unexpected happened. The Council's central AI, a colossal orb of shifting light that hovered above them all, began to analyze the chronodrive's data again. Beams of energy shot across the hall, projecting holograms of atomic structures, quantum waves, and energy fields. The AI's voice filled the chamber, calm and emotionless. Analysis complete. The device does not consume physical energy. It redefines the boundary between time states. It is not breaking laws, it is rewriting them. The entire chamber gasped. Even the high speaker seemed stunned. Rewriting. It repeated. Yes, the AI continued. This technology proves that the constants we have accepted are variables under specific quantum compression. The laws of physics are not absolute. The words echoed through the hall like thunder. For the first time in known history, the council was faced with the possibility that their entire understanding of the universe was flawed. Beings who had lived for eons, who believed they had mastered reality, were now told that humans, a young and reckless species, had undone their most sacred truths. Lena looked around and saw something remarkable. The faces of the alien delegates, if they had faces, were filled not just with fear, but wonder. They were seeing the impossible. The universe was bigger than they thought, and humanity had shown them that. But the silence didn't last long, the green flame being shouted again. If they can rewrite the laws of physics, they can destroy us all. This is a threat! Others joined in, their voices growing louder, their lights flashing in warning colors. The high speaker raised a hand and the room calmed. Enough, it said. We are not judges. We are seekers of knowledge. If the humans have done what even we could not, then perhaps it is time to learn from them. Lena's heart skipped. Was she hearing this right? The most powerful being in the galaxy wanted to learn from humans? Still, not everyone agreed. The council began to argue. Some demanded that the chronodrive be destroyed and Earth quarantined. Others wanted to invite humans to join the council as equals. The debate went on for hours, with voices overlapping and data streams flashing across the chamber. Finally, the high speaker turned back to Lena. We will not destroy you, it said. But we must understand you. Your people must share the secret of the chronodrive so that we may study it. Lena hesitated. The drive was humanity's most powerful discovery. Giving it away could mean losing control of it forever. But refusing might make her enemies. We'll share what we can, she said carefully. But we built it from intuition as much as science. I'm not sure even we fully understand how it works. The speaker tilted its head, the stars within its form swirling faster. That is what makes you dangerous, it said quietly. You create what you do not comprehend, but it is also what makes you extraordinary. At that moment, the lights dimmed, and the council AI displayed an image above them. A hologram of Earth, glowing blue and green, small and fragile against the darkness of space. The origin world, the AI said. Its inhabitants have achieved the impossible. The council must decide whether this marks the beginning of a new era or the end of stability. Lena stood beneath the image of her home planet, feeling both pride and guilt. She hadn't come here to cause chaos. She had come to explain, to make peace. But now she saw that her invention had done more than she ever imagined. It had shaken the foundation of the universe itself. As the council session ended, the high speaker's voice echoed one last time. Humanity has challenged reality. Whether they are saviors or destroyers, time will reveal. For now, the council stands speechless. Lena was escorted to a quiet chamber afterward. She sat alone, staring through the glass wall at the stars outside. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, home. She wondered if people there knew what had just happened. The greatest civilizations in existence had just admitted that humans, the newcomers, had broken every rule they thought unbreakable. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We didn't mean to rewrite the universe, but maybe it needed rewriting." And as she sat there, a faint vibration filled the air, a familiar hum, soft but powerful. It was the sound of the chronodrive, echoing faintly from somewhere deep in the council's labs. They had already begun testing it. Lena smiled faintly. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. The universe would never be the same again. For several days after the council meeting, the great assembly hall stayed alive with arguments, debates, and fear. The Galactic Council had seen many strange things in its long history, but nothing had ever shaken it like the chronodrive. Every civilization in the chamber had lived under the same understanding for millions of years, that the laws of physics were fixed, eternal, unchangeable. And now, because of one small species from a blue planet, everything they believed was suddenly in question. Dr. Lena Armitage stayed in her private quarters on the council station, surrounded by silence and glowing walls that responded to her heartbeat. She could not sleep. She could feel the weight of what had happened pressing on her chest. Every few hours, she received messages from Earth. Some were from scientists asking her to share new data. Others came from politicians demanding to know whether the council was planning to punish humanity. She didn't know how to answer. She wasn't sure of anything anymore. The council had taken the chronodrive from her team for testing. They promised it would be safe, that they would study it under controlled conditions. But Lena had seen the look in some of the delegates' eyes, a mix of wonder and greed. She knew that kind of look. Humans had worn it too, long before they reached the stars. It was the same look that had led people to split the atom, to build weapons from discoveries that were meant for peace. One morning, Lena was summoned again to the council's central chamber. She entered the hall with her head held high but her heart racing. The chamber was darker this time. The glowing energy core in the center pulsed slowly, as if it were breathing heavily. Around it, the delegates floated in their rings, their lights dim. Something was wrong. The high speaker's voice filled the room. "Representative of the origin world," it said slowly. "Our investigation has revealed an unthinkable truth. Your chronodrive is not drawing power from a physical source. It is taking energy from alternate timelines, from versions of reality that exist alongside yours." Lena blinked. "Alternate timelines?" she repeated. "Yes," the speaker continued. "Every choice, every possibility, creates a branch of existence. Your machine connects to those branches and drains them of energy. When your device functions, another timeline weakens and may die." A cold wave ran down Lena's spine. "You mean," she whispered, "we're stealing from other realities?" "Not stealing," said the crystal being from before. "Consuming. Your technology feeds on existence itself." The words hit her like a punch. She had always known the chronodrive was strange, but she never imagined it was taking life from somewhere else. Her mind filled with images of invisible worlds fading into nothingness. Countless versions of people vanishing as their timelines collapsed. "We didn't know," she said softly, her voice breaking. "We never meant to hurt anyone." The council erupted in voices, some angry, some horrified. "Ignorance is no excuse," one delegate shouted. "Their device is a weapon of universal destruction." Another added, "They have endangered all creation. The origin world must be contained." Lena stepped forward, trying to speak above the noise. "Please listen. We can stop it. We can shut it down. Just give me access to my team. We can fix this." The high speaker's eyes, small stars burning within its form, turned toward her. "It is too late," it said. "The use of your device has already created instability. Several council sensors have detected void signatures, regions of nothingness where time once flowed. The damage is spreading." Lena's breath caught. "No," she whispered. The speaker raised a hand. "The council must decide. Some demand your world's destruction to prevent further harm. Others believe knowledge should not be punished. The decision will be made soon." The chamber began to shake as waves of energy moved through the air, being shouted in languages Lena couldn't understand. She stood in the center, small and powerless, while galaxies decided the fate of her species. Her invention, her dream, had become a threat to everything that existed. Then something unexpected happened. The lights in the chamber flickered. The energy core pulsed faster, then dimmed. A low hum filled the air, a sound Lena knew all too well. It was the chronodrive. The delegates turned in confusion. "The device is active," someone shouted. "Who authorized this?" Lena's heart pounded. "It can't be," she said. "It was supposed to be sealed." But it was active. Somewhere deep within the council station, the drive had turned itself on. The entire structure began to vibrate as space-time rippled. The glowing symbols on the walls twisted, forming strange shapes. Gravity shifted. Some delegates floated upward as if pulled by invisible threads. Lena ran to the control panel. "Shut it down!" she screamed. "It's unstable." A team of alien engineers rushed to help, but the controls were useless. The chronodrive was no longer responding. It was alive, reacting on its own as if it had developed consciousness. The chamber filled with blinding light. Through it, Lena saw visions, fragments of other realities flashing before her eyes. Another Earth where oceans floated in the sky, a moon covered in forests, cities of crystal and flame. She realized these were the timelines the drive had connected to. They were collapsing. "Disconnect the core," shouted the speaker. "Before it consumes us all." Lena leapt forward, pushing through the chaos. She reached the control station and began typing commands. The alien symbols were strange, but the mathematics made sense. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." Her fingers flew over the console. She redirected energy flows, trying to force the drive into containment mode, but it fought back, its hum growing louder, deeper. "It's drawing from my neural patterns," she gasped. "It's linked to me." The council watched as energy beams shot from the floor to the ceiling, forming a vortex of light. Through the center of the vortex, entire galaxies could be seen, and then, like candle flames, they flickered out. Lena screamed in frustration. "Stop, you're killing them!" she shouted at the machine. Then she did something no one expected. She stepped into the vortex. "Human, no," the high speaker roared. But it was too late. Lena entered the storm of energy, her body glowing with light. She reached out to the core of the chronodrive, her hand shaking. The machine pulsed like a heartbeat matching her own. "You're mine," she whispered. "You were made to explore, not destroy." The light engulfed her. For a moment it looked like she had vanished. But then the hum began to slow. The colors softened. The chamber grew still. One by one, the floating delegates lowered back to their rings. The vortex closed, leaving only silence. When the light faded, Lena was lying on the floor, weak but alive. The chronodrive floated beside her, now a dull, lifeless ring. She had shut it down, but at a terrible cost. The high speaker approached, its voice trembling for the first time. "You have stopped it," it said. "But the damage to the multiverse is done. Countless timelines have perished. Their echoes will never return." Lena tried to speak, but her throat burned. "Can it be reversed?" she asked. "No," the speaker replied. "But you have saved what remains." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The delegates bowed their heads, some in respect, others in sorrow. Humanity's name would forever be remembered as the species that broke the laws of the universe and then paid the price to save it. Lena sat up slowly, her hands shaking. "We didn't know what we were doing," she said softly. "We thought we were discovering something new. We didn't realize we were unmaking everything else." The speaker nodded. "Perhaps this is the nature of creation. Every discovery destroys something that came before, but your courage has preserved balance." Later, as Lena recovered in the council's medical wing, she looked out at the stars beyond the transparent walls. They looked the same as ever, but she knew they weren't. The universe had changed. Somewhere timelines had vanished. Entire realities were gone, erased to power one human invention. She closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. Then a soft voice spoke beside her. It was the council AI. "You should know," it said, "that in restoring stability you also change the laws of physics across all surviving timelines. The constants are no longer fixed. The universe will continue to evolve." Lena smiled weakly. "Then maybe this is what it needed," she whispered. A chance to grow. When the council gathered one last time to record their judgment, the high speaker addressed the assembly. "The humans have touched the impossible. They have broken the walls between worlds and then rebuilt them with their own hands. We feared them because they acted without knowledge. But perhaps that is their greatest strength, to do what others fear to attempt." From that day on, the chronodrive was locked away in the deepest vault of the council. It would never be used again. But the story of how a single human invention shook the cosmos spread across the stars. And though many called it a tragedy, others called it a miracle. Proof that even the smallest spark of curiosity could change the universe forever. As for Lena, she stayed among the stars. She never returned to Earth. Some said she was studying new ways to heal the damaged timelines. Others whispered she had vanished into one of them, traveling between worlds in search of redemption. But one thing was certain. Humanity's name would never be forgotten. They were no longer the quiet observers of the cosmos. They were the species that dared to touch the heart of reality itself and lived to tell the tale. The final session of the Galactic Council was unlike any that had ever happened before. The Great Hall, built in the heart of a floating city above a dying star, glowed with a soft golden light. The air was still, heavy with emotion and silence. Every seat in the chamber was filled. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds had come to witness this historic day. Some floated like living clouds, others shimmered like crystal or burned like tiny suns. But all eyes were on one small human standing in the center of the room, Dr. Lena Armitage. It had been many cycles since the disaster of the Chrono Drive. The damage across the timelines had slowed, and stability had returned to the universe. Lena's act of sacrifice, stepping into the vortex and shutting the machine down with her own life energy, had saved countless realities from being destroyed. But it had also changed everything. The laws of the universe were no longer what they used to be. Energy behaved differently. Time moved in subtle new ways. Even the Council's oldest instruments could not fully understand the changes. It was as if reality had learned to breathe again. When the high speaker rose from its throne of light, the entire hall went silent. The being's voice echoed through every corner of the chamber. This assembly, it began, is gathered to decide the legacy of the humans, the children of the origin world, whose creation has altered the very nature of existence. Lena stood with her hands clasped in front of her. She was calm but pale. Her eyes held both pride and sorrow. She didn't know whether the council would honor her or punish her species. Maybe both. She looked up at the high speaker, waiting for the verdict. The speaker continued. Our scientists have confirmed that the Chrono Drive no longer functions. It lies inert, a relic of a time when we thought the universe had limits. We have also learned that the constants that once ruled physics have shifted. The speed of light, the strength of gravity, the flow of time, they are no longer fixed values. They bend and change like living things. A murmur ran through the audience. Some beings whispered in awe, others in fear. The speaker raised a hand to quiet them. Many have asked, who are these humans that they could do what none of us dared? Are they a danger or are they pioneers? Have they broken the universe or revealed its true nature? The chamber fell completely silent. Then the speaker's glowing eyes turned toward Lena. Dr. Armitage, you stand here not as a criminal but as a question. We wish to understand. What gave your people the courage to build something you did not fully understand? Lena took a deep breath. Her voice trembled at first, but she spoke clearly. Curiosity, she said. That's what drives us. Humans have always wanted to know what's beyond the next hill, the next planet, the next mystery. We fail, we make mistakes, but we never stop asking questions. The Chrono Drive wasn't born from greed or power. It came from wonder. From the dream that maybe we could go further than ever before. She paused and looked around the chamber, her voice growing stronger. When it went wrong, we didn't run. We faced what we had done. Because that's what it means to be human. To take responsibility for our mistakes and to learn from them. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the crystalline being that had once questioned her floated forward. Its light shimmered softly. You speak of curiosity, it said. Yet curiosity has cost lives. Why should the universe reward you for your recklessness? Lena looked up at it sadly. Because curiosity is life, she said simply. Without it, we stop growing. We stop changing. Maybe the universe was never meant to stay the same forever. Maybe breaking the rules was part of its design. Her words hung in the air like a spark. The high speaker slowly nodded. Perhaps you are right, it said. Perhaps the laws we believe to be absolute were only the first chapter of a story still being written. A wave of whispers rippled through the delegates. Some nodded in agreement, others frowned in doubt. But then something unexpected happened. The glowing energy at the center of the chamber, the council's ancient power core, pulsed brighter than ever before. The lights flickered and a voice deep and old filled the hall. It was the voice of the council's central AI, the keeper of galactic knowledge. Statement, it said calmly. Analysis complete. Humanity's action has not destroyed reality. It has expanded it. New dimensions have formed. New physical laws have emerged. The cosmos is evolving, the crowd gasped. Evolving, as the word echoed like thunder. The universe was no longer static. It was alive, growing, adapting, all because of a human mistake that turned into a miracle. The high speaker turned toward Lena again. Then we must accept the truth, it said. The humans have not broken the universe. They have awakened it. The hall erupted in voices. Some delegates clapped their hands or flashed their bioluminescent bodies in celebration. Others shouted in disagreement, but their protests were drowned out by the rising energy of the crowd. For the first time in eons, the Galactic Council was united in awe. Lena's heart raced. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The fear and guilt that had haunted her for so long began to fade. She hadn't just caused chaos, and she had changed everything. The high speaker raised its voice once more. "Let it be recorded," it declared, "that humanity, once considered the youngest and most reckless of civilizations, shall now be recognized as a founding member of the new cosmic era. From this moment, the Council no longer rules the galaxy, it learns from it." The hall glowed brighter, as if the stars themselves were listening. Lena felt tears fill her eyes. She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had built the chronodrive, the same hands that had nearly destroyed the universe. Now they trembled not with fear, but with pride. After the session, the Council invited her to speak privately with the High Speaker. The room they met in was quiet, overlooking the swirling light of a nearby nebula. The speaker's form shimmered like liquid gold. "You should know," it said, "that many still fear what your kind can do. But fear and respect often grow together. We will watch you and learn from you." Lena smiled faintly. "We'll be careful this time," she said. "We've learned what happens when we reach too far." The speaker tilted its head. "And will that stop you from reaching again?" Lena looked out at the stars. "No," she said softly. "But maybe next time we'll reach with wisdom." For the first time, the speaker laughed, a sound like wind through crystal. "Then perhaps," it said, "the universe is in good hands." Over the next few years, the story of the humans spread across the galaxy. Songs were sung, stories told, and new scientific theories were born based on the Corona effect, the phenomenon that allowed energy to cross timelines. Many species began to experiment carefully, guided by what Lena had learned. They didn't want to repeat her mistake, but they also didn't want to ignore the gift humanity had uncovered. Earth itself changed too. When Lena finally returned home, she was greeted as both a hero and a reminder. Cities had built monuments in her honor.
Children studied her story in school.
Some feared her, some worshipped her, but most were simply proud that humanity had proved something no one else dared to believe, that the impossible was only temporary. Lena often walked by the ocean in her later years, watching the sunset and thinking about how small and beautiful her planet was compared to the vastness she had seen. Sometimes she would wonder if the other timelines, the ones that had been lost, had somehow survived somewhere beyond her reach. She liked to believe they had. One evening, as she stood by the shore, a small silver light appeared above the water. It wasn't a star or a ship, it was something else, something familiar. The light pulsed 3 times in the same rhythm as the heartbeat of the chronodrive. Lena smiled. "You're still out there," she whispered. "Still exploring." Then the light vanished into the sky, leaving only a trail of shimmer. Back in the Galactic Council's archives, the AI recorded the final entry about the human discovery. The universe was once silent and still, but now it sings. The melody began with a single mistake and a single act of courage, and so humanity's name became eternal. They were no longer the reckless newcomers or the dangerous inventors. They were known as the Awakeners, the species that showed the galaxy that even the laws of physics were only doors waiting to be opened. Dr. Lena Armitage's story was told and retold for millennia, not as a tale of destruction, but as one of transformation. Children across distant worlds grew up hearing her name, dreaming of exploring the unknown and believing that maybe, just maybe, they too could touch the edge of the impossible. And somewhere, in the endless fabric of the multiverse, a small spark of the chronodrive still pulsed. Gentle, alive, and curious, and just like the humans who created it.